Hey, good afternoon. I'm Stephen Rhoades, joined with my colleague Jonathan Meade. We're with Synergy Technical. We're a Microsoft partner from Richmond, Virginia. We work with a lot of our clients to implement the Microsoft 365 productivity and security tools, including SharePoint Online. And we're excited to talk to you today about SharePoint Premium and the AI features that you can now find in that product. How are you doing today, Jonathan?
I'm doing great, Steve. Thanks for asking.
Awesome. All right, so our agenda today, we're going to talk a little bit first about some background on SharePoint Premium, and then Jonathan's going to show us how you enable SharePoint Premium, as well as a bunch of really cool feature demos on it. Coming out of that, we'll talk about some other features in SharePoint Premium, the availability and pricing related to it, and then provide you with a few resources that you can use to learn a little bit more. We also are going to take a few questions at the end. So SharePoint Premium is or rather stepping back, as we all know, our content is critical. There's over 2 billion documents daily in SharePoint, or Microsoft 365 rather. So we continue to need ways to basically find, organize, and manage our content. SharePoint Premium is an advanced content management and experiences platform. It uses AI and advanced machine learning to automatically find, classify, and organize our documents that are in SharePoint. SharePoint is actually driving the content that we have both in our SharePoint Online sites, OneDrive, as well as it's also helping to it's going to be necessary for Copilot. But SharePoint Premium also becomes relevant when we talk about Exchange. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. SharePoint Premium is actually the next evolution of branding of Microsoft Syntex, and it includes some of the governance features around SharePoint Advanced Management. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Most of the features are licensed pay-as-you-go. It's a mix of both prior Syntex features and some newer SharePoint features, and it will help you prepare for a Copilot in Microsoft 365. So there are 3 aspects to SharePoint Premium that it attempts to address around your content. Those are your experiences to help boost productivity, keep your content fresh, and optimize your critical business processes, things like documents around contracts, invoices, and SOWs, content processing to help you organize your content and leverage AI automation to build, classify, and tag your documents, and then for governance, features that will help you address things like oversharing, content access, and content sprawl through its lifecycle. So here's a list of the features that we're going to be looking into today. Many of these Jonathan's going to demo for us live, so things like document processing, content assembly, image and taxonomy tagging, I believe document translation and OCR. We'll see those, really cool features. Some of the rest of those we'll just talk through, so things like Microsoft 365 Archive and Backup, as well as content query processing rules. We'll just speak on those, but really it's the demos that are the most exciting thing today. Talking a little bit about SharePoint Advanced Management. So these are the governance-related features of SharePoint Premium. And these really allow your admins and your site owners to govern the data a little bit better. So we have things like data access governance reports. These are reports for overshared or sensitive content. We have site access reviews. This is where we can ask the content owners to review if the access to a site is still relevant. They can confirm that the sharing's okay or make changes to it. We also have restricted access policies. So here we can actually apply this using what we call a site access restriction policy. We can lock down access to a SharePoint site to a Microsoft 365 group or a security group, and even if someone's already had a link or a shared link to the site or access to the site, they still need to now be part of that group. So it's a really great way to kind of control the risk of oversharing. You can also do this to limit access to shared content or even in OneDrive, or even the OneDrive service itself to a security group. So some good controls there. We also have the ability to, using an authentication context, we can connect a SharePoint site to a conditional access policy and control access that way and apply that directly to the site, or through sensitivity labels. We also have a block download policy that we can set on an individual's SharePoint site or OneDrive, and we have the ability to review recent changes in SharePoint site properties. So without SharePoint Premium, you really only have access to see the current session, but with this feature, you can see the last 30 changes made to SharePoint site properties. That's really just for yourself. We also have site lifecycle policies. You can set a policy to automatically detect inactive sites and notify the owners. They're going to get a certify site button, and then they can certify that that site's still active, and that'll make it active for another year.
Okay.
And then finally, we have change history reports. This is a custom a CSV basically of all the site actions or org setting changes that have been made by in the last 180 days by site owners, global admins, and SharePoint admins. So really useful there. So they're just some of the governance features related to it. But really exciting part today, Jonathan's going to share some of the newer features within SharePoint Premium. Jonathan?
Great. I think first we'll start by showing how to enable SharePoint Premium.
Okay.
So let me share my screen. So from the Office 365 Admin Center under Setup, so I'm on the Setup here, so when we scroll down here, under Files and Content, there's here this Use Content AI with Microsoft Syntax, and that's the SharePoint Premium feature. So setting it up is pretty straightforward. First, you're going to set up your Azure subscription billing. So you're going to set that up first here. You're going to pick the subscription that you're going to use, and once that's configured, then this other option here will become enabled, Manage Microsoft Syntax. And really, when we click in there, really it's a set of the different features that Stephen mentioned, and really, literally, it's really coming into these and mostly just turning them on. Some you just turn on for the tenant, some you point to specific sites or specific libraries and specific sites. So the setup is really, really straightforward. The other piece that this does is it creates what's called a Syntax or SharePoint Premium Content Center, and this is where all your models for document processing are housed, and we'll show that as well. So document processing, this is the extraction of information from documents that you've uploaded to SharePoint. So this could be something like contracts, receipts, invoices, statements of work, etc. Some of these models leverage the Microsoft AI Builder, and some are just kept right in SharePoint itself. So there's three types of document processing models. There's the pre-built models that Microsoft provides, and these are used specifically for contracts, invoices, and receipts, and we'll show that one. Those models are pre-trained, so you don't need to tell it about how to find stuff in a receipt. It kind of does it for you. Next are what are called structured or freeform models, and this is something you're going to want to use with something like an invoice or a purchase order, something that has multiple detail lines. That's when you're going to want to use that structured or freeform model. And then the last one is unstructured, and this can be a wide variety of documents, and this is where you're going to use you're going to train the model to find the information, to extract it from these documents, as well as classify them. All right, so let's go back to the demo here. All right, so here I am on the Content Center. And so what we're going to do first, we'll go under, so down here you can see down here is a kind of a dashboard of how your models are performing. So it's a great centralized place to manage that. So we're going to go under models here, and we're going to create a model. And the first model we're going to create is one of the pre-built models. So we're going to pick receipt processing. You can see here's an example. Next, let me just call it receipts. Type in here. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is add a file or two to analyze. So I've uploaded a couple receipts that we can use. And once I've added my files, we'll go next. And so what it's doing is it's using the model and it's going to apply that to our upload and use it to figure out the content it's going to extract. So it's found the merchant address for my sample, the name, phone number, subtotal, the tip, and the total amount, and the date. There we go. Time. And then we'll go to our next file. Oops. Second file here. And again, it's going to find us that information again to extract from here. So the difference with this second example is the tip, if you notice here, the tip and the total are actually just handwritten. And we'll see if the extractor can find that information here. And it does. It found the tip for $5, and then it found the total as well for $36.12.
So you're using this model out of the box?
Correct. Yep. There's no. It already understands receipts, and this is really just verifying the model with some examples. Alright, so next. So the next step really then is just to apply the model, and this is where you're gonna pick the site and libraries where you want this model applied. So I've already done that, so I'm not going to do that here, but I'll show you. I'll come out here, and we'll go to show you under demo here, just to show you how that works. So a lot of stuff I'm going to show you is really essentially you drag or upload files and then it does the processing. So in the interest of time, I've kind of done some of this ahead of time, but you can see how it's worked here. So once you apply the model to a document library, it's going to set up the content type and then all that metadata that we extracted. And then you simply would drag and drop files in or upload them or send them from a Power Automate process. And after a minute or two, it will process that information and populate that metadata. So if we look at our receipt here, so here's our receipt. Again, we have the handwritten tip and total. Tip $16 and totals $97. And if we come back here, we can see that information did get extracted correctly, as long as the other key pieces of information from there, the merchant, the address, and so on.
Very cool.
All right. So let's go back to our content center. And next we're going to create another model. We're not going to create it, we're going to work with another model. The other model I'm going to show you is the unstructured type. Microsoft stuff here. And so I have this model built for service agreements. And so for this type of unstructured model, you're going to do a couple things. You're going to upload some files here. So let's go here. Let's cancel that. So I have some files uploaded here. And then once those files are uploaded, you're going to train the model. And the first thing you're going to do training the model is to identify, is the file itself, the document itself, is that a service agreement in this case. So you want to have at least 5 positive examples and at least 1 negative example. So you can see these. I've said yes, this is service agreement, this is, so on. And then when you get down here, I picked a whole different document and saying no, this is not a service agreement. And this will help the model figure out which document is a service agreement and which document is not.
So we can take a bunch of our existing business documents and basically train it to recognize what type of document.
Exactly, yep. All right, so let's go back here. So then the second piece of that is now we want to do, like we saw in the receipts, is we want to do extraction of the key pieces of information from there. So you can see we have like the client and contractor and so on. I'm going to jump down to this one here for client address just to show you how that works. So what you do, the first piece is for that client address is you're just going to go through your sample documents and you're just going to highlight that client address, and then you should see it once it's been selected. You should then see it in the label column here. So really you just go through and kind of pick where in that file the client address is. And again, you want to have at least one negative file. So in this file, this is not a service agreement, so we're just going to click no label here. So once that part's done, then we just need to train our model. So hit train. And this is where you're going to set up an explanation. And an explanation is just a way to help your model find that information you're looking for. So if we hit, let me just hit new here for explanations here just to show you from the templates here some examples. So there's labels here looking for uses like regular expressions. So if you're trying to find like a credit card number, or credit or dates or email, you can do that. And look, you can also search for phrases. So there's a lot of different, kind of, and can get very complicated here. But what you're going to find is you can really start really simply, and the model will find the information you're looking for. So here for this address, all I did was use a key phrase, and I just said look for the word of, and then look for the phrase the client. And by doing that, just telling it that piece of information, it's able to find the address for my examples. So you can see here the predicted and labeled, the green and the blue, we want that to match up. And if we look at our examples here, you can see that all of these, the prediction label, match up. And then the last piece you want to do is test it. So if I I have a sample document here, and you can see that this is the address that it's predicted, and that's what we want, that address. So again, so you have the model built, and again, the last piece is you're just going to specify down here the site and library that you want to apply this model to. And once you do that again, let me go back to the example here. So here, the agreements, here I have dropped the document in here. Again, after a minute or two, it will process, and it's going to classify it with the content type, in this case, service agreement, and then all the metadata will be filled in, including the, scroll over here to the right, as well as the client address over here. So it's a very cool feature. You can leverage Power Automate with this as well. So you could drag and drop documents in here, and then once they're processed, you can then trigger, that Power Automate can then be triggered to send it for approvals or route it to, move that content to a different document library, send it to a customer or user in your environment. So really a lot of potential to really streamline your business processes with this.
Very cool. Nice.
So content assembly is a way to generate standard business documents. So this would be something like contracts, statements of work, or agreements. This uses a modern template, and then information can be entered manually, or from a SharePoint list can also trigger this process as well. And I'll show an example of both of those things. Let's jump over then. It's not much to it. Let's get right into the demo here. So I have just a modern document library here. I'm going to create new, and I'm going to create a modern template. I'm just going to pick this Word document here. All right, so here's our construction contract agreement, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a template from this, and we're going to do that by creating fields and associating that field with where we want that data populated in our agreement. So the first thing I'm going to add is our date, our effective date.
And again, you're starting just with, this could be any Word document that you have.
Correct,
or
yep.
your own business.
Yep, exactly.
contract.
So type effective date, and then I'm just going to look for where in my Word document, put that date. I'm just going to confirm our selection. Hit next. Then we just need to specify the type of information this is, and this is a date or time, and we don't want the time portion of that. All right, there we go. So we want to add another field, and this is going to be our client. And right here where it says client name, that's where we're going to actually put the client name. So I'm just going to select that text, confirm it, and hit next. And in this case, this information, we could certainly have the option to manually type this in, but what we're going to do is we're going to leverage a SharePoint list we have that has a list of all our clients. So I'm going to pick, say, select from here, and I have a list here called clients on our site, and that's going to be the title column. Save that, and then next we want to add another field, and this is going to be our the address of our client, and that address is, we want that to come here where it says client address. And again, we have our SharePoint list that has our list of our clients as well as their addresses, so we don't need to manually type that in. We can pull that right from this SharePoint list here called clients. And there's a column there called address. And if we look down in our agreement here, further down we have scope of work, so I'm just going to add a couple of fields for that. Called scope 1. And we'll confirm where that text is going to go. And that will just be a single line of text. And we'll do the same thing with scope 2. I'll select the text here and confirm it. And again, that's going to be a single line of text. All right, I'm going to add one more field. And this field, we're going to call this construction type. So this isn't a field that appears on our agreement. It's a field we're going to use to as part of our conditional logic that we have in this agreement, which I'll show you. So I'm going to say this is a foreign field. There's no content gets replaced. And this is going to be from a manage metadata term set on our site. So I have here a term called construction type, and here's the different values here: addition, new construction, and repair. Save there. All right, so we have our construction type. So now we're ready to add our conditional section. So if I scroll down here in our document, there's a section called permits and licenses. And at least for our example, we're going to say if the construction type is repair, then permits and licenses are not applicable, so we don't want to show it. So we're going to add our conditional section. And we'll just call this permits. And we'll select that whole section content. And we're going to say when construction type is not equal to repair. So there we go. So when it's not equal to repair, we show it. If it's equal to repair, it's going to be hidden. All that looks good. So if we're happy with that, we'll go ahead and publish it up here. And what this will do is, if it's a new library, it's going to go ahead and it's going to generate these columns as metadata in your library. There we go, we're done. So here's our library, and we can see those fields that we had. So now to use our template, I'm going to just hit new, and I'm going to say I want a new construction contract. And so here we can see over on the right, here's those fields that I set up earlier. So I can let's just pick a date of today. The client, so when I hit the client, this is a drop down from that list that we referenced. And so I'll just pick this guy. So advanced bike components in Austin, Texas. So I choose that. And you can see the address automatically got populated. Our scope. Let me just put some text in here. More work. So those, you can see as everything's gotten populated here on our construction agreement. And then for here, for the construction type, so if I pick repair and hit apply, we should see that section become hidden.
That is really cool.
I'll hit next, and we'll go ahead and we'll create our document, and we'll just name it here. We don't want to call it template, we'll just replace template with advanced bike. Hit create. Done. And there you go. So our document's been populated, and let's see here. And then our fields will get filled in as well. The other thing I wanted to show, that's if working with the template directly. You can also, if I go to the list here called contract generator, you can set up a Power Automate to work off of a SharePoint list. So if you just fill out a SharePoint list item with those same pieces of information, the client, the scope, and so on. You can then have a Power Automate run based off of this list and then generate that template for you. Let me see if I have an example of that. Let's jump over to Power Automate. And here's that generate contracts. Let's go just look in here real quick. Yep. So when an item's created, and so this would be created in that list, you can then go right here, and there's a step called generate document using Microsoft Syntax. You can see here we'll just populate our template. We specify the library and the template name, and it will bring in the fields that we want to use, and then we can name our document. And so we can generate it right from that SharePoint list as well.
So now we're getting that client name on that document.
Right, instead of having to try to manually figure
do
out
it.
what you
That's
want to
great.
name it. Yep.
And you're automating all that. That's fantastic.
Next thing we have is image tagging. And this is a way to automatically tag your images based off that image. And it'll use AI to figure out what's in that image and create tags for you. This is really helpful because this is going to be, again, managed metadata that is searchable. So this is a great way to be able to search for images in your environment. And it also supports all your common image types, PNGs, JPEGs, GIFs or GIFs, however you like to say that, etc. So to turn this on, it's very simple. Once you've enabled that feature on your environment, you can see here under, oops. Oh, there we go, sorry. Under Automate, there's Configure Image Tagger, and all it really is it's either enabled or disabled. That's all there is to it. Once you do that, you simply can drag and drop your images in here. So for instance here's a picture of some trees, hills, so on. And then again, after a couple minutes, it will go through, and then you can see here in this image tags column, it will populate that. So for the trees, the one I just showed, it's got clouds, day, field, Highland Hill, so on.
So you uploaded these a while ago, but how long does it normally take?
It just takes a couple minutes.
Okay.
So certainly for demos, it's going to take a long time because that's how things work.
Mm-hmm.
But normally, from what I found, it took generally no more than 2 minutes to do this. So look, here's another example with horses. So there's family on some horses. Again, after a few minutes, it's tagged it. What was interesting on this one was it kind of put all sorts of great tags, except it didn't actually put horses on here.
So we have horse supplies, but we don't have an actual horse.
Correct.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting, even though we have 3 horses there in our picture. So anyway, a great way to tag your images, and of course, as I said, this makes these items now searchable by those tags. So if you're looking for horse, let's type horse correctly here. Start typing horse. and you can see it found our horses here because it had the word horse tack there and horse supplies. All right, so that's image tagging.
Very cool. How about document
Document
translation?
translation. This is a great way to make to translate your SharePoint documents. It can be triggered manually, or you can also set up a rule to automatically translate for you when you drop documents in there. This will work with all your standard Office documents, as well as CSV, HTML, PDF, or text files. So for that, let's jump over to the library here called Translations. And so let's go ahead and I'll show some examples here. But while we're waiting, why don't I go ahead and we'll translate this list of new suppliers here just to show you what this document looks like. Standard PDF here. So I'm going to pick it, and then once you have that feature activated, you'll see an option here to translate. And we're gonna it's got a lot of languages in here. We're gonna translate it to Irish, and we'll hit translate. So that's kicked off the process. While that's waiting, I'll show a couple examples here. So here's an Excel file with some cost data for North America, headings, and so on. And then here is a German copy of that same content. You can see everything, all your headings been translated. All the formatting is maintained. It's not going to do anything. I do want to
Do anything with the data, does it?
No, so all your date formats or decimals, those sort of things, they will not be localized to the language. They're going to stay as they were.
Okay.
It's just going to be the words and stuff that gets translated. So we can also look at a PowerPoint as well. Sure. Just going to give you an idea of what's in here. Let's close that, and then I have a copy here in French. And so again, it's nicely maintained. All that formatting is just gone through.
All the layouts are the same.
Yeah.
It's just changing those text elements. That's great. So obviously, you still want to go back in and validate some of this, right? This just gives you a head start.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So, it's pretty good, but the language is probably not going to be perfect translation, and so there's still could be some manual fixes that someone who's fluent in that language would need to do.
Okay. And how long does this normally take? I'm seeing that Gaelic one's not
there yet. Again, it takes a few minutes. There it is. So
oh, look at that.
So it's been within 2 minutes or so. So here's our list of new suppliers in Irish, and we can come in here and we can see it's all been nicely translated for us.
It's really powerful.
If you want to, so this is manually kicked off. So under Automate, you can create a rule, and so I can say when a new file is added. And then we can say I want to create a version in Spanish. So if you have a bunch of documents that you always translate to Spanish, you can set up a rule. You don't even have to kick it off manually. You can just drag and drop them in there, and it will run the process for you.
Nice.
All right, so let's go on to OCR. So this is going to extract printed or handwritten text from both images and documents. The text is written to a document library column. It's called extracted text, and again, that is fully searchable. So again, it's a great way to have if you have a bunch of legacy or old documents that have been scanned as PDFs. This is a great way to be able to find that and make it very searchable and accessible. This works with all your standard image formats as well as PDF image file types.
Let's see it.
Yeah, so let's go over here again on my test site here. We'll go to OCR. And again, it takes a minute or two, so I've preloaded some good examples for us to look at. So this first one is this casing document, which I think is about velocity of bullets or something. So it's got a bunch of content here. You can see it's all old typewritten image. It's got some formulas and stuff in there. So if we come back here, we can see under that extracted text, and let's look at the full version here. Let's go down here. You can see it's translated everything. You can see it's even translated those formulas we saw in there as well. Yeah, so it did a great job there. The second example I have here is a handwritten note. So if we click on that one, so you can see this. It's not even really legible handwriting necessarily. It's a little hard to read even some of it, but it did. Again, right here, it did a great job of translating it. The only issue I saw was, and if we look at here, I write quickly, and this is I often skip, but you can see here it took that I and it mistranslated as a D for dolphin. Yeah. So, but otherwise it was perfectly right, and if this just had a little more spacing between I and often, it probably would have caught that.
Probably would have got it. Yeah, that's impressive.
Again, drag and drop it, and it will automatically extract it within a minute or two.
Okay.
So next we have taxonomy tagging, and this is kind of in the same vein of what we saw. This is a way to automatically tag documents using terms you've already configured. So where this is nice, if you've set some standard terms, instead of making your users manually go back and figure out the tagging themselves, it will do it for you. So let's jump over to my test site. We'll go to taxonomy tagging. So I created here a managed metadata column called region. And let's see here if I extract it here. So basically the region, I just made the different continents here. And then the key is to leverage what I'm going to show you is this automatically tag documents must be turned on. And so once you've turned that on, again, you drag and drop or upload the documents in there. And after a minute or two, it will do this tagging. So this first document, you scroll through it here, you can see you have the sentence here covering Asia and North America. And if we look back here, those are two of my regions. It found it, and so it applied that tagging.
So it's manually scanning all the content and finding the relevant tags.
Yes. I don't know if manually is the right word.
I'm sorry, it's not manually, automatically.
Automatically, yes. Yes, the exact opposite of manually. So, next example here, vacation policy. Again, this is the vacation policy for Europe. There's our Europe. If we go back and look, again, after a few minutes, it will automatically tag it with Europe as the region.
Very good. Nice.
All right, so the last two items here we'll show are annotation and merging and extracting PDFs. They're both really very simple and straightforward. Annotation is a way to add notes or comments to content. What's nice with annotations is it's just a layer put on top of the document. So the document itself is untouched. So if you email that document to somebody or send it to them, those annotations don't come with it. It's just a layer that you can look at.
It's really just living in the SharePoint site?
Yes, exactly. Yep. I'll show the annotations. They're pretty basic right now, but Microsoft is adding more additional functionality to this, so you can do more with the annotations. Let's go back to documents here. So I'll just open up this PDF. And so once you open that up, and if you have the annotation feature, you'll see the little pencil guy here. Click Show Annotations, and you can see your controls there. And then you can just add some stuff. And then it's just a matter, if you want to hide them, you just turn it off. And there they are. Again, they're just a layer on top of the document, but it's a great way to internally mark up content.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, that I'm going to show is merging and extracting PDFs, which is a common feature that people do want. So without having to go and buy additional software from another third party, you can do that right within SharePoint. So I'm just going to pick I'm going to pick this document here. Let's open it up. And where's my merge option? Right here. So there's a little icon there for merge PDFs into new PDF. So I just pick the other PDF that I want, so I have them both here. And then I can certainly swap them around. So I can reorder this and merge them in any order I want. I'll just hit next. We'll just call it merged. And we'll save it. And if we come back out here, there's our merged document. And you can see it has both files put together here. And conversely, there's from here, there's an extract option. So I could just select the pages that I want to extract. Hit extract, and it'll create a new document with just the pages that I selected for extraction.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, so really simple to use, but certainly powerful.
Yeah.
All right, Stephen, that's all I had to show for
Fantastic.
today.
Thank you, John. Those are great. All right, so talking through a few other features that we have in SharePoint Premium. We have Microsoft 365 Backup. This is a new storage architecture that's within the Microsoft 365 trust boundary. It's faster than traditional methods, and it gives you the ability to back up all or select SharePoint, OneDrive, or Exchange mailboxes. You can restore to a prior point in time in the entire tenant, and you still have the ability for admins to search and filter content using the metadata of that content. This is currently in public preview, but expected to be generally available middle of this year. And there are some roadmap items around being able to have some granular file recovery and also back up things like Teams chats. You can also leverage third-party systems such as AvePoint, Cohesity. If you're using those for your backups, you can use those partner applications built on top of Microsoft 365 Backup, and then have that still as a single pane of glass to see your Microsoft content as well as other non-Microsoft data sources.
That's great. A lot of customers have asked us over the years for backup and restore beyond just version history, so that's wonderful.
Absolutely. And then finally, we have Microsoft 365 Archive. This is a way for you to keep your information architecture as is, but then you can move out-of-date content to this archive storage. It's going to preserve the versions, the metadata, the security settings, even the retention policies, so admins can still do things like some of those compliance actions like e-discovery or records disposals. You can also easily restore it to Microsoft 365 hot storage, and it leverages multiple redundant storage within the Microsoft 365. This is generally available and rolling out now, and it's substantially less expensive than the regular storage. And you're really only going to pay for the storage over and above your allocated Microsoft 365 storage. There is a cost, I believe, if you reactivate archive data, there's a cost for that too. We also have things such as SharePoint E-signature, so you can now route documents for signature approval within while staying within the Microsoft 365 tenant. You can send this for users inside and outside the org. If the users are outside the org, it's going to use guest access for external sharing, so you need to make sure that review your security and compliance requirements, make sure that that's okay. You can maintain a digital audit trail of that signature, and it uses what they call simple electronic signatures. So you want to confirm if those terms of service meet your legal requirements. And there are integrations with Adobe and DocuSign that are rolling out now. We've got some resources later. There's actually demonstrations of these within those resources. If you want to look at that later. And then some other features that we have Content Query. This allows you to search documents using specific metadata based on querying certain column values. We have processing rules where you can build rules-driven actions based on the metadata. So for example, you could create a rule to take or move a file to a library based on a value in a column, such as a customer field. And then we have premium taxonomy. This is where you can basically import what's called a simple knowledge organization systems based format and use that within SharePoint Premium. So in terms of the availability and the pricing, most of the features that we saw are available now. So a lot of what you demonstrated today, Jonathan, it is actually out now. There are some things that are currently rolling out or going to be available in the coming year. I believe the Adobe Sign and the DocuSign integrations are rolling out.
Yeah.
But things like the Graph API for SharePoint Premium, some of the other things we haven't talked about, like the Business Documents Team app, some of the other features like autofill columns, those are going to be available later. In terms of the pricing, many of these are pay-as-you-go, so we do want to share, I'll bring this up, but many of the features like document processing, e-signature, PI detection, autofill, they're actually using the pay-as-you-go model. I'll bring this up really quick. So as you can see, here are the pricing. This is on the Microsoft Syntax page. But each one of these is billed as you use them. So for example, there's the pre-built document processing, basically a penny a transaction. You can see that some of these are about 5 cents per transaction. So it's a great way to roll these features out and really just pay for them as you're using them. You can see the SharePoint E-signature is $2 a transaction. And then the Microsoft 365 Archive is basically, it's like 5 cents a gigabyte a month. And the M365 Backup is 15 cents per gigabyte a month, so substantially cheaper storage.
Great value.
We also have some of the features, such as the SharePoint Advanced Management we talked about, those governance-related features, the Business Documents app, the Document Hub. Those are actually on a per-user license, right now at $3 a month in the commercial tenants. And they're required for each of the users, but not for guests. And then in terms of some resources, we've got some links here to the SharePoint Premium Adoption Hub, the syntax pages in Microsoft Learn, as well as that pay-as-you-go pricing that we showed you. There is a syntax promo going where you can basically use these features through the end of June, I believe. For free, and then there's a link to the roadmap that's filtered on the syntax, now rebranded as SharePoint Premium. And so we would like to take a few questions now, Jonathan, from the audience, if you'd like. So
Sure.
Let's see what we've got here. All right, so one question we were asked is, can you apply these features to an existing document library or data? So things like the document processing.
You can pick that library, but you're going to have to re-drag and drop those documents. So it might be best to just start with a new library and maybe move that content, and that will trigger the process.
Got it. Okay. And then does that document translation work on like the SharePoint sites or the pages themselves?
No, not currently. It's just those documents the Office documents and text files that you can upload into that library.
Okay. I think we touched on this before, but how accurate are the translations, and do we still need to check them?
You definitely still need to check them. They're pretty good, but it's still like Google Translate, where it's sometimes it's not going to catch it quite right. So
Okay.
I would recommend still that you have someone go through it. So it's still a lot easier than manually having somebody manually translate those documents. So it really does the bulk of the work for you.
Absolutely, yeah. It's very, very powerful. Finally, what features are the most popular that we're finding customers wanting to implement?
Certainly the document processing, because that's people have been wanting to extract content from those type of documents for a long time. So that's really popular. And then the content assembly too is getting more popular. Definitely.
Yeah,
it's a way to automate some business processes. Because again, once that template's been applied and you have the document created, then again you can send it on through the rest of your business process.
Yeah, it's a great feature, a way to leverage your existing content and really kind of automate some of the processes. It's great. Great. Well, thank you for joining us, Jonathan. Any other last words?
No.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today. We're excited to share with you SharePoint
Yeah,
Premium,
very
and
excited.
hope you guys have a great day.